Okay, let's get into this real quick. This is a very, very spicy video. The breaking news, and it's coming out just basically this week, is that the Social Security Administration is changing its policy on what are called AFIs, which are financial institutions, specifically AFI being access to financial institutions. If you want to look up this specific, and it's called an emergency message release, it's a back office document used by the Social Security Administration. It's released to the public, but it's not meant for the public. Specifically, it is emergency message EM 25046. Again, EM 25046. Now, before we get beginning, please remember, if you enjoy these video updates about the Social Security Administration and what's going to happen with your benefits, like and subscribe. So many of you guys, you don't hit the like button, you just, wheedle waddle around it, and, it is what it is. But if you could like and subscribe. Another thing that I always love waking up to are those reviews on the business page. You Google disability resolution law firm or disability resolution Florida. Let's get right to it. So this is EM 25046, an emergency message with retention date basically of 2/1/26. However, this was released on 8/1/2025. Okay, so bottom line is this thing is red hot, and the phrasing in it has me a little like, whoa. Now, before I go into this, number one, it's going to affect one group of people. However, they are intending to apply it to more groups down the line. Remember, this is giving the SSA unfettered check access, where they can check what you've got in your bank account. And I don't know about you guys, but I think when it comes to retired people, Social Security disability insurance people, SSI people, sometimes you guys don't want the bank giving all of your information away to the federal government right away. And that's what's happening with this situation. You need to know this particular three-letter phrase here. It's AFI. It means access to financial institutions. Let me read it to you. Here we go. Purpose. The purpose of this emergency message is to inform technicians of a new verification requirement for financial institutions, FI accounts, and access to financial institutions, AFI. Okay, so what they're talking about is they're changing their rules when it comes to how they access your bank accounts to get information from them. The new policy applies to all SSI age 65 plus, known as SSI AI allowances. Just means they're age. That means they're old SSI people. Now, remember, this is the one group that they're doing it to now. Their intention is to do it to the other groups as well. So let me read this to you again so everybody's on board with it. The new policy applies to all SSI age 65 plus allowances. These are called SSI AI people. They're just aged SSI people. A lot of you guys don't realize, but bottom line is, when you're on SSI, you can go on it for disability, you can go on it as an immigrant, or you can go on it as an old age individual. Okay, so that's just some stuff to know. When you're over 65, it means you've basically aged into it because you're a poverty class. Okay, a lot of Republicans will argue, that basically, if you, were to receive your, benefits, or if you were to receive your money and use it to invest yourself, if you failed at successfully investing it, they would just put you onto SSI. And then ultimately, basically when you hit 65, you can go on to SSI. All right. But this video is not just about that. It's about financial institution allowances for the SSA to access your bank accounts, including SSI AI claims that require a disability or blindness determination, which is a multi-category eligibility. So in other words, you can get SSI for being an immigrant, a disabled person, or an old person. Okay, this also includes disability, blindness, old age spouse claims, SSI AI initial claim reopenings, and initial claim appeal reversals processed on or after 8/1/25. So basically 8/1/25, so 4 days ago, this thing hit the back office situation. Remember, these emergency messages released by the SSA are purposely released with the intent of instructing the personnel that work at the SSA, because they are usually released by OISP which is an operating policy department, to all RCs, ARCs, ADs, FOs, TSCs, OCOs, OCOs, CSTs, and FOSUs, which are basically just varying divisions within the SSA. So this is an explanation document to the staff, the internal groups of the SSA, which means I don't know. I don't know why they're releasing these publicly, but the bottom line is it's a good thing we get to see them, but they're not meant for you to really digest. So I'm going to try and break it down. Okay. All right. With that said, let's keep rocking through it. Now, this is the most important sentence. So if you're listening right now, this is the most important sentence, and they always put it right at the end of the paragraph. We expect to expand the scope of this new policy beyond SSI AI allowances, which serve as a starting point given the relatively low number of cases. All right. So what are they saying here? Fair game. They're starting off with elderly SSI people. They're going to expand into disabled SSI people. They're going to expand into essentially, immigrant SSI people, and then to SSDI people, and then to retired people, and so on and so forth. There's no exact schematic as to who they're going to do next, but they're starting with the category of SSI people to get full, repetitive, continuous access to their bank accounts. Because remember, SSI people, they're not allowed to have over a $2,000 resource limit, and they're not allowed to earn over a certain SGA amount, $1,620. So they're a good target audience to start with. But remember, the SSA can also use this to spy on you to see what you magically have coming into your account and what you magically seem to be affording, even though you're not supposed to have that much money. Let's keep reading, but let me read that last sentence one more time. It's the most important sentence of this emergency message. Okay. We expect to expand the scope of this new policy beyond SSI AI allowances. Those are the age 65 plus SSI people, which serve as a starting point given the relatively low number of cases. And what they're talking about here is they're trying to catch SSI people with more access to their bank accounts so that they don't go over the resource limit. And what they're saying is the old age 65 plus SSI people don't have that happen a lot because they don't have other jobs, extra income, friends giving them money, all that stuff. So the amount of, basically criminal or, improper actions that could occur with this old age SSI population are low. So they're starting this program to use them as their beginning demographic. All right. AFI verification. So what that stands for is access to financial institution verification. In SSI AI claim allowances, that's old SSI recipients, is now required regardless of the claimant's liquid resource or FI account ownership allegations. All right, let me put this in simple terms. They had this thing where there was a cutoff. They'd look into your bank account if you were over a certain amount, but if you were under that amount, they didn't give a bleep. They really didn't care. It just wasn't whatever on their thing, okay? So now they're doing auto searches to see what they can find continuously, repetitively, without restriction. Let's go into this, okay? For all non-SSI AI claims and workloads involving resource verification, technicians must continue to follow current policies in SI 01140.010 and SI 01140.206 to request AFI verifications and apply the $400 liquid resource tolerance when applicable. So what they're saying is for people who basically fall out of that category system where, they're not old age SSI recipients, for everybody else, if you have more than $400 of liquid resource tolerance in your bank account, right, they would normally have to send a thing to the bank, figure out what's going on. Do they have too much money? Did they violate the resource limit? Yada, yada, so on and so forth. But for old age SSI people, they're not doing it anymore. They're starting with them, and then they're going to grow it into other SSI people and SSDI people and retired people. And then ultimately what will happen is basically everybody who receives a check from the SSA will have to give over access to their bank accounts so that the SSA can see if they want to tax you more, restrict you more, or take away more potential benefits that you could have. Background. AFI, okay, so just to clarify again, I want to give you the exact details of what AFI is. AFI, as part of this emergency message, is access to financial institutions, okay? AFI improves our efficiency, it's the SSA's efficiency, in obtaining evidence related to FI accounts, financial institution accounts, your bank accounts, in claims and post-eligibility workloads. All right, let me read that to you again so you know exactly what's going on. AFI, access to financial institutions, access to your bank accounts, improves our efficiency, their ability to go ahead and watch you, in obtaining evidence and then create a case against you related to financial institution accounts, related to what's in your bank accounts, in claims when they're going to file something against you and try and remove your benefits, file civil procedure actions, criminal actions, and post-eligibility workloads. So put another way, it makes the SSA more efficient at catching you from having too much money or having spent a lot of money and somehow wiggling around the situation of having restrictions with your bank accounts. It helps them track you, okay? It makes them more efficient. So they're removing restrictions that existed as to how much financial liquidity tolerance normally would have to be in that bank account. AFI, okay, access to financial institutions, aka your bank account, also reduces SSI payment errors and improper payment related to financial account balances and undisclosed accounts. Let me simplify that. AFI, access to financial institutions, access to your bank accounts, also reduces SSI payment errors and improper payments related to financial account balances. What they're saying is if they have full access and continuous access, they can cut your check off that month that you have too much resource or you went over SGA or whatever like that, because they're going to know right as it happens. So boom, right as it happens, that next month, you ain't getting a check, right? And that's what the new system is. They're going to have full, continuous, repetitive action to access your bank accounts. So again, they go ahead and reduce at the SSA their payment errors and improper payments related to your bank account balances and undisclosed accounts. So in other words, that undisclosed accounts, what they mean to say there is, if you think you can hide an account somewhere, another country, another place, different bank, they're going to have full access to see what you've got going forward. Okay. We generally request access to financial institution verifications when an individual alleges 400 or more liquid resources during initial claims. Redetermine, which is a lot of people, redeterminations and limited issue claims. However, for redeterminations and limited issues in which a resource-related diary is present, we request access to your bank accounts with verification without regard to the liquid resource verification tolerance. Okay, so in other words, there's different ways that they've been using to access your bank account. They had a $400 claim situation, and now they're saying for these other individuals, we're getting rid of that. We don't care. We just want to have access to their bank and know what's going on. Okay. Field office instructions for new financial institution account verification requirements in SSI age 65 plus claims. So here is the actual breakdown. Okay, the actual breakdown that they want their employees at the Social Security Administration to go ahead and follow when it comes to accessing your bank accounts to check on how much money you have, your resources, or I quote again, basically over here, improper payments related to financial account balances, how much money you have in your bank accounts, and also undisclosed accounts, meaning were you hiding an account from them so that now they can see what you've got so that they can pull your check from that next month and then do an overpayment against you. All right. Field office instructions. Verify financial accounts using access to financial institutions. So the whole point of this is they want to verify what's going on by having continuous access to your bank accounts. Effective 8/1/25 when processing these SSI AI claims with at least 1 month of potential eligibility. 1. Request access to the bank account of the person with verification prior to adjudication and payment of allowance. And 2, get access to that financial institution account using AFI regardless of the claimant's liquid resource or financial institution account ownership allegations. So it's just a bulldozer. If there's some sort of wall or something that's going to slow them down from accessing your bank accounts, it's gone. They've got a deal worked with your financial institutions. They're going to go ahead and just access them. If there's some sort of gate or restriction, the federal government is saying we are removing those. We are now going directly into your bank accounts to see what's going on. And again, as I quote, let me go back to the original quote here. Hold on. Sorry, my phone keeps ringing because somebody's waiting to go live when I answer questions for free. And I quote, and this is important, we expect to expand the scope of this new policy beyond SSI AI allowances, which serve as a starting point given the relatively low number of cases. So in other words, SSDI people, retired people, ultimately for you to get your check, they're going to probably require access to your bank account so that they can see what you have. Now, remember, structurally, as this is approached, this is a great way for the government to then stop giving a retirement check or a disability check to people who have certain amounts of resources. Think about it for a minute. Let's say the government, grows this program, which is I just read to you their intent is to grow it from SSI people over to SSDI people over to retired people. That then gives them access, full and complete access to your bank accounts, right? The ones that you admitted to having and the ones that were undisclosed that they then discovered. Then, if they change the rules for SSDI benefits or retirement benefits, the idea would be, even though you paid in, if the trust funds are failing and they've got to somehow save money to keep paying people, they could potentially change the rule to only pay some elderly people retirement benefits and only pay some disabled people who have low resources. That's where I see this thing going. That's, I think, the natural realm of where this, administration, not Trump, not necessarily the Democrats as well when it comes to, how they want to do things. But that's where I see, basically the Social Security Administration evolving to not pay retirement benefits to people who might have over $200,000 saved or might have access to a home that they could sell to go ahead and fund their final years. It's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. But if you think about it, that is something that they will likely look into as the trust funds fail in the next 7 to 8-ish years. And so that's just something that if they have full access to your bank accounts, they're going to know whether or not they want you to get a check that you've paid for your entire life or not. Okay, let's keep reading. Then, to request financial institution account information, your bank account, follow Access FI procedures in SI 01140, 206E, and 206F. That's for electronic cases and for non-SSI claim system cases. That's interesting, right? They have to follow non-SSI claim system cases. So they're already saying, we want you to follow a non-SSI claim system case analysis when looking at the money that they have. So they're already ramping up this ideology of not just doing this for SSI people. Okay. Requests must include all alleged financial institution accounts, if applicable. So they're saying when they do a request, it needs to include all of the bank accounts that you have, this country, other countries, etc. Okay, so let me read it to you again. Requests must include, right, getting access to your bank accounts, all alleged financial institution accounts, a geographic search, because that's where they're going to search other countries, other banks, see what you might be hiding or having in another place. And applicable relationship related searches. And that's where they're going to search your spouses, because they're going to search your kids, your spouses, your grandparents. They're going to do basically an assessment to see who also has money that they can get access to. Now, I know what you're thinking. That would seem like a privacy right violation. And you would be correct, because, bottom line, right? They shouldn't have access to your spouse's finances. But on SSI, they do, because they have to do what's called deeming of the 5-step sequential process. Deeming is where they look at your spouse's benefits or income, and that helps decide whether or not you get to keep your benefits, because if your spouse has more coming in, they won't give you a check. So let me read it to you again so you understand exactly what's going on here. Requests must include all alleged financial institution accounts, a geographic search, they check other countries, check other banks, and applicable relationship related searches. So they're going to search basically your family members that are tied to you. Spouses is the beginning of this. And then from there, decide whether or not you should be able to receive a check. Now, remember, once they have access to your financial information and they grow this to SSDI people and retired people, they might pass legislation saying, look, if your spouse is a rich person, maybe you shouldn't get your retirement check. If your uncle is a rich person and has a history of donating money to you, maybe you shouldn't get a check. And that's the unfortunate process that this could follow, because think about it. No way would this ever happen but for a really big potential crisis out there, right? Well, what's an example of a really big potential crisis that would make them limit who would receive Social Security benefits? Well, that would be the running out of the trust funds, because then the retired people would get a 20 to 22% reduction over the next 7, 8, 9-ish years, but most likely 7 or 8 years. Now, remember, if you give a 20% reduction to a bunch of retired people, now the retired people that have a house, right, or they have money in the bank, well, they could try to go ahead and say, this is what we're going to do. All the people who have a house that they could sell, all the people that have money in the bank, we're going to give you a reduced 20% reduction in your retirement check. All the, because they could expect you to sell your house. They could expect you to go ahead and spend the money in your, your Bitcoin and your, Wells Fargo account and this and that. All of the people who essentially don't have money, don't have resources, they'll give the full retirement check too. That is a realistic legislation for this situation. If you're about to have a massive collapse of Social Security by a reduction of 20 to 22% of retirement checks, right? It would make sense that a lot of people would vote to, because there's a lot more poor people in America now. Remember, if you want to collapse Social Security, you create a bunch of poor people. That's something hard for especially SSI people to jump on board with. But SSI people tend to not realize, and a lot of people don't realize it, but America needs a lot of innovators, wealthy people that want to start businesses, right? Search and seek out opportunities. America doesn't want to go ahead and have more individuals that need money from it. They want individuals that are going to make money that they can tax. So the problem that we have here is that when there's a lot of poor people that basically can't afford things, and then we take 20% of whatever the retirement check is away from them, real quick, all those poor people are going to vote so that people maybe over, that have over $150,000 in their bank, or maybe a house that's worth over $250,000, whatever, they're going to vote to throw the people that have some money, that the haves people are going to basically get thrown under the bus and likely see legislation that allows the reduction of their check each month for impoverished people to get the full normal amount. which is, I don't know. It's really epically scary, and at the same time, it's kind of weird. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like I have an unhealthy relationship with Social Security. I know a lot about it because I've lived in it. I've studied it. I've owned a law firm in it for almost 12 years. We're coming up, by the way, September. It's either like the 13th or 27th or 23rd. I forget what it is, but it's somewhere over there. The law firm will officially be 12 years old. So I'll look it up later and tell you guys. And you know what? Hold on. Let me just check because I should know this. Hold on. Let me go. Hold on. Disability resolution, Sunbiz. Let me just check real quick when my official let's see, disability resolute, there I am, active. Let's see, yeah, there it is, date filed 9/24/2013. So on 9/24/2025 we will officially be 12 years old as a law firm. Imagine that, a 39-year-old me, beat to hell and tired and horribly under not enough sleep, very tired. 12 years of owning a law firm. All right, so here's what I think is going to happen. So they go ahead and get access to your bank account information. They search the people that you're related to. They search your bank account to see how people give you money. And if you have a lot of money and the trust funds are running out and then they run out, they'll probably restrict people who have money from receiving their check or give them a smaller check. Okay. That's basically what I foresee happening here. I do see you guys calling me on the phone. We've missed 27 calls. We will do the live directly after this video where I answer questions for free. Okay. So just hang in there for right now. Okay. All right. With that said, let's keep rocking and rolling. Okay. Requests must include all alleged financial institution accounts, a geographic search, and applicable relationship-related searches. To minimize processing delays, initiate verification requests as early as possible in the application process once there is a reasonable expectation that the claim will be approved. Okay. The person who keeps calling me, keep in mind, I'm going to go live after this and answer your questions for free. All right. Now, with that said, and I think this is super duper important. Okay. Let me read to you again, and then we'll pull it apart as a sentence. To minimize processing delays, meaning so that they can go ahead and figure out if they're going to give you a check or not, or go ahead and end your check for that next month. Initiate verification requests as early as possible in the application process once there is a reasonable expectation that the claim will be approved. So if they're saying, hey, if they think that you're going to be approved for some sort of SSI benefit here, specifically old age 65 plus, because that's the one they're starting with here, then they're saying, we want that person scanned as fast as possible. We want to know who they're related to. We want to know what money they've had in the past. We want to know every single bank account they have. We want to know what other bank accounts they've been hiding from us. We want to know all of that. Scan them. Do not delay adjudication of claims if the only outstanding access to financial institution responses are for sub-requests or geographic searches. So they're saying push the claim through, let it keep rolling, let the adjudication, the ruling, the judgment keep going, but keep those searches going. Okay, that's what they're saying here. Note, do not verify financial institution accounts for technical denials. So they're just saying don't do a technical denial yet. Let the adjudication continue, but create a report. Now, number 2, determine whether verification of other liquid resources is needed given results of financial institution verification. So they're saying here, if the person has money or another account or family members, like a spouse that has money, if they have those, then you're going to go ahead and basically create a report that's going to go ahead and punish that recipient. But if they're super poor, like homeless, super low income, Section 8, welfare people, then allow it to continue. Okay. The $400 liquid resource verification tolerance described in SI 01140.010B and 010C may still apply to all other types of liquid resources if the claimant alleges liquid resources below the $400 tolerance and The bank account verification corroborates that allegation. In other words, when they access your bank account verification combined with alleged values of other resources do not exceed $400 threshold in any month subject to verification. So put another way, this threshold is saying if you claim you have less than $400 and it turns out you do have less than $400, then they will allow things to go fine and continue and not be problematic. Okay. And that's weird. Imagine a cutoff being $400 before they really start to dig in and see whether or not you're going to get your first or continuous check for this SSI old age based program. All right. If the financial institution account verification indicates liquid resources are over the $400 tolerance, verify liquid resources according to SI 01140.010b.1. So what they're saying is if you have more than $400, which is hard to imagine that a person wouldn't have more than $400, but if you have more than $400, they're going to do a deep search to see if they're still going to give you a check. That's just insanity to me. Like having a $2,000 resource limit is insanity. Like make it $10,000. Then a lot of this stuff won't matter. You are forcing poverty on Social Security recipients and decreasing and degrading their standard of living for what? For what? To create unsuccessful like people that have to constantly suck at the belly fat of America? Like what the hell? It's just weird that we've had US aid, massive welfare, and immigrants en masse. You know a statistic that they have not released that I've been really curious about, but it's not out? I can't find it. How many new immigrants went onto SSI benefits during the Biden administration? I haven't been able to find a year by year for the newest years. I haven't. It's just weird. And, the Republicans kind of had to wake up and realize how important Social Security is. It is the agency that gives a Social Security number, which is then used to help create state-based numbers for voting. It is the agency that creates Social Security numbers that allows people to apply for loans, a mortgage, right? A bank account. It's also, right, the Social Security Administration, the thing that can create fake individuals that don't actually exist, which we've read from OIG, where even SSA employees get caught creating fake children and attaching them to basically a deceased person. Example, during an initial claim for an aged individual, the SSI applicant alleges they have $20 in a checking account and 100 certificate of deposit, a CD. A total liquid resource allegation is $120. Under the new bank account verification rules, the CS must run AFI, right? So the SSA employee must run an access financial institution, go into your bank accounts to verify the bank balances, since it is now required in all age claims. So what they're saying is they're going to go in there and just check it. Full access, full uninhibited. There's no like cutoff thing here. They're good. They're going in. They're going to search your bank account. Okay. The Access of Financial Institution response verifies the checking account balance was $19. So not 20, but $19. And no other accounts were found. After considering the verified bank balance, liquid resources are valued at $119, $19 in the checking account, $100 in the CD, and still under the $400 tolerance. Therefore, the SSA employee does not need to verify the certificate of deposit value. Why are we making Americans so poor? How did we afford billions and trillions in US aid? If the AFI, the Access to Financial Institution verification, showed $350 instead of $19, the CS would need to verify the certificate of deposit. Liquid resources would be valued at $450, $350 in the checking account, and 100 certificate of deposit, and the 400 liquid resource verification tolerance no longer applies. Okay. Financial institution account verification reminders. So this is to the SSA employees about reminders that they need to keep in mind when accessing basically your bank accounts. Financial permission. Obtain the claimant's and, as applicable, deemer's financial permission before verifying FL financial institution, FI financial institution account balance information. And I'll do a video on this. I'll make a little note of how they get access to your bank accounts, how basically when you apply, you can give them access to them, all that stuff. I will give you a video specifically on the process they use to get access to your bank accounts. Okay. And remember, if you try to withhold it on certain programs within the SSA, they still get to access it. Otherwise, you don't get a check. Alternative verifications. After requesting access to the financial institution, if a claimant provides alternative documentation of an alleged account balance for the entire verification period, do not delay the adjudication of the claim. Okay. Use the received alternate documentation checkbox on the eAFI subsystem view request screen to clear the SSI claim system edit. Process any eAFI or E4641 responses received post-adjudicatively as a standalone post-eligibility event. See SI 01140.200C.3 for acceptable alternative evidence. Remember, this is back-end stuff that the SSA employees are reviewing, but I'll explain it. I'll turn it into English. Direct all program-related and technical questions to your RO, regional field office, support staff using vHelp, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let me just summarize the whole thing so that you understand what's going on. There is a push to get full access to your bank accounts and not just do it when a tolerance potentially has been breached. They're starting with old age SSI people. However, and I quote, "We expect to expand the scope of this new policy beyond SSI AI allowances, which serve as a starting point given the relatively low number of cases." So they'll go from SSI old people to SSI disabled people to SSI immigrants. Then they'll go to disabled people, retired people, spousal benefits, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you think about it, once they have access to your bank accounts, they can start to figure out who has money and who doesn't. And with the trust funds slated to run out in the next 7, 8-ish years, potentially 7, potentially, it's not going to be 9 because they got the fertility rate wrong for all these years in their math. So the bottom line is this. If they go ahead and have access to your bank accounts, they may try to pass laws in the future that if you have a house that you could sell, if you have a certain amount of money in your bank account, you would get a decrease in your monthly check. And then those people who have a smaller monthly check, those who didn't work as much, those who didn't earn as much, those who didn't pay as much, will get to keep their bigger check because they need more money to be able to survive. Then, of course, those who could sell their house to continue survival. Okay. So the idea is, once again, going back to the very fundamentals of this article, this is an emergency message released this week, effective immediately as of 8/1/25. It is an internal backend document, EM25046, intended for all functions of the SSA and released by their OISP, which is one of their operation policy groups, to go ahead and instruct future field office and other personnel about what they need to do to get access to your bank account. If you enjoy these videos, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, head to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. That's the law firm that I work for. I love waking up to seeing positive stars. It's up to you, though. You can always write that. You can always leave some if you want, but I always love waking up to that. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. I get super tired sometimes. One of the weird things about people is that they will go ahead and reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I have a question." And they'll reach out to me during the middle of the law firm. So like, if you need disability benefits, call me. That's what I do. That's my job. I work at a law firm. I have for the past almost 12 years worked at my law firm. And then before that, I worked for another law firm. And then before that, I worked at another law firm. And then before that, I actually worked at another law firm. That goes all the way back to Schwartz. But the point is, anyways, if you already have benefits or you're looking to file and you're like, "I don't want an attorney, I just want to get access to your brain," there's also a mini contract in the bio area below where you can access my brain for an hour or 30 minutes. They're just private consultations. Now, final thing that I want you to keep in mind, I don't do a lot of stuff with Medicare. I don't study it. I don't hang out with it. I do SSDI, SSI, and VA compensation, let's just VA disability. If you have Medicare questions, please reach out to these people. So what happened is there's $14.6 billion worth of Medicare fraud going on right now. It's probably going to go to 15 billion or maybe even higher because of essentially what's going on with the villages in Florida. Massive hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud against the village's elderly. But the point is, you can always give them a call because they're up to date on what's going on with that fraud. They can also do a tune-up specifically on your Medicare plan, see if they can save you some money, get you something that matches better with your medications, upcoming surgeries, etc. 339-226-6287, askchapter.org/disability. All right. I will catch you all at the next video where I go live to answer questions for free. I can't go too live for too long because the bottom line is I have to go to sleep, wake up, and go to the homeless office tomorrow because it's Wednesday. So if you call the law firm tomorrow, remember, I won't be at the law firm answering calls until much later in the day because they line up the homeless and then basically I go through their claims and work with them. I'll catch you at the next video in about 5 to 10 minutes. I'll put the bio link for it in the chat section. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.